Are we all bound by a universal code of ethics, or is morality relative to individuals and cultures? What is right and wrong? This is a question that has perplexed humanity for millennia. From the earliest civilizations to the modern era, people have grappled with the idea of morality and ethics. Some believe that there is a universal code of ethics that applies to everyone, while others argue that morality is relative to each individual's beliefs and cultural context. This debate is at the heart of the concept of moral relativism, which has been a hotly contested topic for many years. In this video, we will explore the idea of moral relativism and ask whether there is a universal code of ethics that applies to all individuals and cultures. We will examine the arguments for and against this controversial idea, and delve into the implications of moral relativism for our understanding of morality and ethics. Proponents of moral relativism argue that moral values and principles are not objective, but rather are socially constructed and vary from culture to culture. What is considered right or wrong in one culture may not be the same in another culture. For example, in some cultures, it is considered acceptable to have multiple wives, while in others, it is considered immoral and illegal. Moral relativists believe that morality is not based on any absolute standard or authority, such as religion or natural law, but rather on the cultural and social norms of a particular society. They argue that moral judgments are not objective, but rather subjective and relative to each individual and culture. According to moral relativists, this perspective allows for cultural diversity and individual freedom. It acknowledges that different cultures have different beliefs and values, and that each person has the right to determine their own moral values and principles. In this view, moral diversity is not a problem, but rather a positive aspect of human experience. However, moral relativism has been criticized for its potential implications. Critics argue that without a universal code of ethics, there can be no moral absolutes or objective moral principles. This can lead to a society in which anything goes, where individuals are free to act according to their own whims and desires, without any consideration for the impact of their actions on others or society as a whole. Additionally, moral relativism can also create moral dilemmas, where conflicting cultural values and principles lead to ethical quandaries. For example, if one culture values the preservation of human life above all else, while another culture values the sacrifice of individuals for the greater good of the community, it becomes difficult to determine which value is more important or valid. Moreover, moral relativism encourages critical thinking and reflection on our own moral values and principles. It challenges us to examine the reasons behind our beliefs and to question whether they are based on objective truth or simply on cultural conditioning. By doing so, we become more aware of the influence of our cultural context on our moral beliefs, and we are better able to understand and respect the beliefs of others. In addition, moral relativism recognizes the complexity of ethical issues and acknowledges that there may not always be clear-cut answers to moral questions. It acknowledges that different people may have different opinions on what is right or wrong, and that these opinions may be influenced by a range of factors, including culture, personal experience, and religious beliefs. Furthermore, moral relativism allows for cultural exchange and mutual respect between different groups. It encourages individuals to learn about and appreciate other cultures, and to recognize the validity of their moral beliefs and practices. This can help to promote tolerance and understanding between different groups, and can help to reduce conflicts based on cultural differences. Finally, moral relativism can promote social and political change. By recognizing that moral values and principles are not fixed and unchanging, but rather subject to change over time, moral relativism can provide a framework for advocating for social justice and equality. It allows individuals to challenge existing moral norms and to work towards creating a more just and equitable society. Critics of moral relativism argue that the absence of a universal code of ethics means that there is no objective standard by which to judge actions or behaviors. They contend that without such a standard, there can be no right or wrong, good or evil. This leads to moral nihilism, where there is no moral compass and anything goes. They argue that this can result in a society where individuals are free to act according to their own desires, without any consideration for the consequences of their actions on others or society as a whole. Critics of moral relativism argue that it is self-contradictory. They assert that if moral relativism is true, then it must apply universally, including to those who do not believe in it. This means that there must be a universal code of ethics that applies to everyone, which contradicts the very idea of moral relativism. If moral values are relative and culturally determined, then they cannot apply to everyone universally. This criticism arises from the fact that moral relativism rejects the idea of absolute moral values and instead claims that moral principles are relative to each culture or individual. Therefore, the very notion of a universal code of ethics is incompatible with moral relativism. If there is a universal code of ethics, then moral relativism is false. However, if there is no universal code of ethics, then moral relativism leads to moral nihilism. Moreover, the idea of a universal code of ethics is a fundamental tenet of many religious and philosophical systems, including natural law theory. These systems argue that there are certain moral principles that are inherent in human nature or the universe itself, and that these principles apply universally to all human beings. The rejection of such principles by moral relativism is seen by some as a rejection of the very foundations of morality and ethics. The challenge that moral relativism presents to the concept of human rights is significant. Human rights are based on the idea that there are certain values and principles that are universally recognized and applied to all human beings, regardless of their cultural context or beliefs. However, if moral relativism is true, then the very notion of universal human rights becomes problematic. If there is no universal code of ethics, then it becomes difficult to justify why certain rights should apply to everyone, as different cultures and individuals may have different moral values and principles. This can lead to a situation in which human rights are seen as culturally relative, rather than universal. Furthermore, moral relativism can lead to a society in which there are no moral absolutes, and in which anything goes. This can create a moral vacuum in which people are free to act according to their own desires, without any regard for the impact of their actions on others or society as a whole. This can lead to a breakdown of social norms and values, and can result in a society that is characterized by moral chaos and confusion. On the other hand, moral relativism has its advantages. It promotes cultural diversity and allows individuals to live according to their own beliefs and values. It also encourages critical thinking and reflection on our own moral values and principles, as we are forced to confront the fact that what we consider to be right or wrong may not be universally accepted. This can lead to a deeper understanding of other cultures and a greater appreciation for the complexity and diversity of human experience. Moreover, moral relativism can also lead to a more tolerant and accepting society, as it encourages individuals to respect and tolerate the beliefs and values of others, even if they do not agree with them. This can promote greater social harmony and understanding, and can help to bridge the gaps between different cultures and communities. In conclusion, the debate over moral relativism is a complex and controversial one that has been ongoing for many years. While proponents of moral relativism argue that there is no universal code of ethics that applies to everyone, critics argue that this leads to moral nihilism and a society in which anything goes. Ultimately, the truth about moral relativism is likely somewhere in the middle, as there are valid arguments on both sides of the debate. However, regardless of where one stands on this issue, it is clear that moral relativism has far-reaching implications for our understanding of morality and ethics, and it is a topic that will continue to be debated for years to come.